How's it going, everyone? It's Hobby from West 1000. Today is January 1st, 2021. So, Happy New Year to all of you. As today, we're going to be tracking two snowstorms that are currently impacting the United States. Well, one is currently impacting the United States, while the other still has yet to come, and it's expected to come sooner than you think, headed into the late weekend, into early next week. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see more weather-related content. So let's begin by first taking a look at the Gfs Computer Model, and it is 60 hours from now, and this is the second snowstorm that I am referring to in this video, where we see a low pressure system just off the mid-Atlantic coast. We see the snow just to the north of it, and we see a pretty large swath of rain extending just off the coast of mid-Atlantic and even extending further inland. And as you can see, as we move forward, that snow swath continues to grow. We begin to see the darker blues, which represent higher snowfall rates, heavier snow, and I wouldn't be surprised over the next several days if the GFS gets a little bit more confidence of bringing a little bit more heavier snow, because keep in mind we're still 3 days out, and while when we're 3 days out from the storm, it's definitely more certain than, let's say, if we're maybe 5 days out. However, there still could be major changes when we're talking about a forecast 3 days out. Let me give you an example. Like Hurricane Irma in 2017, 3 days out was expected to impact eastern Florida, or the eye was expected to stay mainly offshore of eastern Florida. However, literally 3 days later, the eye of Irma ended up along the west coast of Florida, and that's a huge difference. Although it's only, I would say, around less than a 100-mile difference in the track, it just made a huge difference in terms of what type of impacts you see. And this could be the same situation where any sort of variation in the track could make a major difference in the strength of this storm, as well as the potential snowfall you might receive from this second snowstorm. So taking a look at the GFS model, you see that it is fairly weak for the most part. However, it begins to get interesting going later during its run, I would say around 4 days from now, because headed into Monday, January 4th, the storm begins to pick up steam, and it's as a result of the increased instability as it heads up northward. Because look at where it is right now in North Carolina, or where it will be around 2 days from now. It's going to be in North Carolina. However, you see that 540 millibar contour line, which is a good representation of the freezing line, is still ways away from the low pressure system. It's definitely not extremely far away. However, it isn't really entraining the storm just yet, or very close enough to really force a lot of convection or create an unstable atmosphere in this region enough to strengthen this storm. However, as we move forward, that 540 millibar contour line gets closer to the convergent area of the low pressure system, where there's a lot more heat converging in the low pressure system, and as that convergent heat that is released from this low pressure system encounters the much cooler and denser and pretty much air with less energy of behind this contour line, we begin to see that dense air trying to move into that warmer convergent rising air within the low pressure system. And as it does so, we begin to see more convection, and more convection means a stronger storm, and it becomes an endless cycle where, as the cold air behind this 540 millibar contour line attempts to fill in the less dense rising air within the low pressure system, that cold air will eventually warm up as a result of the Gulf Stream just off the coast of the mid-Atlantic states, which is still warm even during the winter, and that'll fuel this storm as it heads up the coast. And you see that dip begin to become more pronounced later during the week, headed into Monday, where the 540 millibar contour line, or let's say the freezing line, is very, very close to the low pressure system, and that's just going to create a very unstable environment, and that's just a recipe for rapid intensification. Because if you take a look just 6 hours from now, it's so weak that it isn't even visible, that the Gfs Computer Model doesn't even show a visible low pressure system just south of New England. However, within that 6 hour time period, it strengthens to 996 millibars, and it strengthens quite a bit to the point where we begin to see the darker blues just off the coast of New England. And this represents very heavy snowfall rates, and this could be very impactful for eastern New England, especially in Maine. Maybe Boston could get involved, New Hampshire as well, maybe even more areas of Massachusetts. It could impact a lot of people and dump just a heavy amount of snow. And the thing is, with this storm, as you might notice, it's going to move very slowly, because going around 78 hours from now, it's just south of Nantucket, Massachusetts. However, if we continue to move further down the forecast, you see that it barely moves within that 18-hour time period. And it's not only that it's moving slowly, it's also strengthening rapidly off the coast. So this could cause a major snowfall threat for a lot of eastern New England, as well as a very strong wind event for New England as well, thanks to a strengthening storm. It won't be a major wind threat based off of what we're seeing, and however, it's still enough to where you could experience beach erosion and maybe coastal flooding in some low-lying areas where they are prone to coastal flooding. So we need to keep this in mind in New England, that a major snowstorm could impact you guys. And not only eastern New England, like I said before, guys, we could see snow in the interior Northeast. I don't think it'll be as bad as, let's say, eastern New England. However, it's still something to watch, because again, only 3 inches of snow could cause havoc on the roadways, and then we see that snow extend to the mid-Atlantic and further inland towards the interior Northeast, as the cold air behind this 540 millibar contour line, that cold dense air, will change a lot of that rain over to snow, and there won't be enough convergent air or enough heating with this low pressure system to really change that snow over to rain in some areas of the Northeast. So definitely expect snow throughout the interior Northeast, I would say, and maybe even New Jersey or the metropolitan New York City area could experience snow if just enough cold air is there, which is certainly a possibility, I would say, because here's a look at my current snowfall forecast map. Again, this is over the next 5 days. So for the interior Northeast, that is going to experience Storm 1, which I'll get to in just a second. The Storm 1 I'm referring to is a storm that's currently impacting the Midwest as of right now. I'll get to that in a second, but I'll just want to say that this is snowfall accumulation over the next 5 days. So for the Northeast, this snowfall forecast you see here includes Storm 1 and Storm 2. So it's going to be a combination of both. And I wanted to combine the totals of both, because they're going to happen in a very short time period. Like I said, it's only going to happen over the next 5 days. And really, for a lot of you guys, it's only going to happen within 3 to 4 days from now, all of this snow. So you might as well combine the totals, since you're going to experience the totals in a very fast time period, to where it's going to be very hard to prepare between these two snowstorms in the Northeast. However, you see, I'm predicting an extended area of 6 to 12 inches, primarily in the Pocono Mountains, extending the Catskills and Adirondack Mountains of New York, a lot upstate New York, interior Pennsylvania, more specifically the higher elevations of Pennsylvania, and further away from the cities where the temperature will be colder thanks to the lack of pavement storing the heat. And also, I expect even more snow, up over a foot of snow along eastern New England. And I would say this is just north of Boston, as in Boston, I think it's going to be a very close forecast for you guys, because you guys are going to be very close to the heavy snow. I would say any small variations in the forecast, like let's say this storm is a little closer to the coast or a little further south, or that cold air filters in a little more south, you could definitely see up to a foot of snow in Boston. I wouldn't rule that out of the possibilities. However, as of right now, I would say the more likely scenario is 6 to 12 inches in Boston, so which is still major for Boston. So keep that in mind. And this snow I'm predicting even extends to northern New Jersey. I however, after this recent GFS run I've been seeing, I would say I'm overestimating the snow just a little bit. I would say closer to the bigger cities like Philadelphia and New York City and the metropolitan areas of those cities. Like, I think it's going to be a little less than that. However, I still think there's that possibility of snow accumulation, so watch out for that. And it's going to be very important to keep track of your local forecasts over the next several days with this second snowstorm. So you might be asking, what could change the potential track of this snowstorm? So what's interesting is that the European is taking a more offshore track with this, which would obviously mean that there's less likely you're going to experience a major snowfall from this, because comparing the European forecast 120 hours from now to the GFS forecast 120 hours from now, which is approximately 5 days from now, you see that the GFS is a lot closer to the coast. But one thing I'm noticing by both the European and GFS model is that they're both moving at an extremely slow pace, at pretty much a snail's pace, because going at day 4, 4 days from now, you see that the storm is, I would say, a couple hundred miles southeast of Nantucket. However, if you move a day later, it barely moves at all, and that's worrying because along the coast, if this storm is strong enough, that could cause a lot of beach erosion, which could lead to coastal flooding. And also, obviously, since this storm is moving slower, there's more likely to have more snowfall accumulation. However, the good news is with the European model, it's a little bit more off the coast, so it's less likely you're going to experience more of a major snowfall threat from this around eastern New England. However, for the mid-Atlantic, it seems likely that you will experience low pressure close enough to experience snow in the interior northeast portion, so watch out for that if you're around the interior northeast. And then just off the coast of New England, you will also see, it's likely you will see at least some sort of snowfall threat. And we need to see how these two computer models change over the next several days, because like I said, 5 days from now, a lot could change. And right now, the European is definitely favoring a more offshore track, which impacts New England less. However, the GFS is taking a more onshore track, which impacts New England even more and could be a major snowfall threat for New England. We just have to wait and see. It really all depends on where this jet stream dips and the timing of this jet stream dip, because if it dips a little bit earlier and we see a little bit more of a dominant ridge form behind this 540 millibar contour line, or like I like to call it a jet stream, then it's more likely that the storm will stay further to the east. However, if the jet stream dip is a little weaker, then it's more likely that the storm will lie more along the coast. So we just have to wait and see what will happen over the next several days, and it is definitely something important to watch. Now, moving on to the current snowstorm that's currently impacting the Midwest right now. Let me refresh the radar so I could show you guys what's happening right now. And this storm is also could cause just major impacts for a lot of people within a lot of states and cities, because if we take a look at the radar right now, you're going to see how impactful this could be. So here's a look at the radar. This is as of let me move forward a little bit so you guys can get the better picture of the radar. You see that there's a lot of ice through impacting Illinois, Missouri, Indianapolis is now in the ice, and even Ohio. And taking a look at the Futurecast radar, you see that there's just an abundance of ice, just freezing rain, just impacting Missouri, and a lot of the Midwest states just north of the Ohio River Valley. And that's just going to cause a lot of ice accumulation that could cause a lot of damage. Here's the current total ice accumulation forecast from the National Weather Service. And look at the yellows, which represent a quarter of an inch to a half an inch of ice, and that could cause a lot of damage because a quarter of an inch of ice is just very heavy on the branches. The branches could only hold so much weight, so they're bound to fall down on power lines, which could cause power outages. And a quarter of an inch of ice is far worse than snow, because with snow you at least have some friction between the road and your tires. However, when it comes to ice, the ice is a lot more stronger, and it's bound to melt a lot more easily. So there's a lot less friction between the tires and the roads during a freezing rain situation, and that could cause major havoc throughout Missouri. As currently an ice storm warning is in effect for a lot of Missouri at this point, as it's just going to be a very, very dangerous site. And the ice storm warning extends to Illinois as well, so keep that in mind, because the freezing rain is just going to be just going to cause a lot of havoc. And this even extends further into the Northeast, where you could see up to a quarter of an inch of ice in the interior Northeast regions. And prepare for a power outage threat, especially if you're in the Midwest, where you could see up to a half an inch of ice over the next several days. So let's continue to take a look at the Futurecast radar. You see that the snow extends and we see that ice extend all throughout the Midwest. That snow continues through the Midwest. It won't be a ton of snow, but still could cause havoc in Milwaukee, which already just experienced a snowstorm, and even more places. And this snow and ice extends to the northern Northeast, and you see that new snowstorm forms, dumping a little bit of snow in the Midwest by Sunday, January 3rd. So keep that in mind. And then taking a look at my total snowfall accumulation map, you see that I'm expecting an area of 6 to 12 inches in Missouri, which could get the worst of this current snowstorm, and 3 to 6 through an extended area, which includes Chicago, Milwaukee, and a lot of Kansas and Oklahoma as well, on top of the snow you've already experienced in a lot of these places. So keep that in mind. And also severe weather will be the problem as well. So, and a tornado threat, since there's going to be a lot of convergence, there's going to be a lot of rising and downdrafts in the atmosphere. So you're bound to see tornadoes, more hail, and strong damaging winds as well, thanks to a lot of unstable air in the atmosphere, which is causing a lot of movement in the atmosphere. So keep that in mind. This severe weather extends to Georgia, and it's just going to be hectic all throughout the United States. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. And I hope you guys have a good day, good night, or good morning whenever you're watching this.